Good morning, kindergarten. It's Mrs. Shervani from the Syracuse Academy of Science and Citizenship. How are you guys on this Monday morning? I hope that you're doing so well and that you got some fun outdoor time yesterday and Saturday. I know that my family and I were outside a lot in our backyard, and it was so nice to have some sunshine home. Okay, so I'm ready to start our listening learning story for the day. The past few lessons, we've been learning about George Washington. Do you remember that name? I'm sure you do. So George Washington was a very important founding father of our country. They call him a founding father because he did so many important things to start our country. So today we're going to learn about another founding father because George Washington wasn't the only one. Each of the founding fathers had a special role to play. They were part of a big team, and they each had their own special gifts and talents that helped them to help the country. So today we're going to learn about a man named Thomas Jefferson, and he was our third, that's 1, 2, 3, our third president of the United States. And one of his talents was writing. So listen out for some details about Thomas Jefferson and what he did with his talent of writing. So we'll learn why he was such a good leader too. And this week we're talking about leadership and positivity project. So it is perfect timing. By the end of this lesson, your journal prompt, let me show you, will be to list 3 facts from today's story. Any 3 facts. That's your goal for the day. So let me make this full screen and we will get cooking. Okay, get nice and cozied up. Maybe you want to sit like this or stand up, or maybe you want to sit crisscross or lay on your side, sit in a chair, on a table, whatever is most comfortable for you, and we'll get ready to read. So listen out for what Thomas Jefferson's talent was and why that talent made him a good leader, and then we'll write 3 facts. Okay, here we go. You are learning to read and write. One day you will be able to pick up almost any book, open it, and start to read the words. I'm sure many of you can already do that. How wonderful. Of course, someone wrote those words. And people who write books are called authors. So author is another word for a writer. Our third president, Thomas Jefferson, was a great reader because he wanted to learn about many different things. He owned more books than anybody else in the country. He once said, "I cannot live without books." I couldn't live without books either. Thomas Jefferson was also one of the best writers to ever live in the United States. He wrote words that are still famous all around the world, even though he wrote them a very long time ago. Let me tell you about the most famous words he ever wrote. Okay, let's see. It was long past midnight. The guests at the inn wanted to sleep, but they could not. An inn is like a hotel. Thomas Jefferson was keeping them awake. They could hear him pacing his room and talking to himself. So here he is pacing, means you're walking back and forth and back and forth. And I see this man right here. He is like, "Hey, what's going on up there?" Because he can hear him walking on the steps. The guests, excuse me, the guests thought, "We will complain to the manager of the inn tomorrow. She must ask Mr. Jefferson to be quiet. At least he has stopped playing his fiddle." That's a violin. See it right there in his hand? I think that looks like it, huh? He says it helps him think, but it keeps us awake. Yeah, I couldn't imagine hearing somebody play a fiddle when I'm trying to sleep. I would be a little bit frustrated about that. Thomas Jefferson was a wonderful writer. He wrote about what he grew on his farm and how he grew it. He wrote about music and art. He wrote about the best ways to design and construct houses and buildings. He wrote about animals and birds. He wrote about how to be a good friend. And he wrote about the Native Americans who had come to America long before the colonists. He wrote about nearly everything because nearly everything interested him. Very cool. At the time, however, Jefferson was trying to write a very important document or paper that is now famous in American history. It is called the Declaration of Independence. Some of you might have heard that before. It's very important. A declaration is like a statement or an announcement. Like I might say, hey, kindergarten, I have a declaration. That means I have something important to tell you. And independence is another word for freedom. So another way to say it would be that you're announcing your freedom. Thomas Jefferson believed people should be free to make most decisions for themselves, without a king or queen telling them what to do all the time. As he wrote the Declaration of Independence, he used an important word, liberty. That's another word for freedom, too. In writing about liberty, Jefferson wanted to choose the best word so that people reading his writing would understand and agree with his ideas. Why was Thomas Jefferson writing this document? I don't know. Let's keep reading. Like his friend, George Washington, Jefferson thought it was time to start a new country and not be part of Great Britain any longer. Not everyone in the colonies felt this way, though. Jefferson, along with a few others, needed to give good, strong reasons to make this big change. They were hoping to persuade or urge most of the colonists to believe the same thing. Leaders from all over the 13 colonies met to talk about what to say. They chose 5 people to work on a document explaining the reasons for the new nation. So this was a very big privilege that Thomas Jefferson got to be able to write on this document. One of the people working with Jefferson was John Adams. Jefferson and Adams were great friends, although Adams was as different as he could be from Jefferson. John Adams lived in the north, and Thomas Jefferson lived in the south. Adams was short and older, and Jefferson was tall and younger. Adams loved to talk, especially in front of a crowd. Jefferson loved to read and write, but he was shy in front of a crowd. However, they were alike in at least one thing. They agreed it was time to start a new nation. Because John Adams was older, Jefferson suggested, John, you should write the paper explaining our ideas. No, Thomas, Adams replied, I have angered so many people by arguing for a new country that some of them do not like me. They might not want to help us start a country if they know I wrote the paper announcing it. Everyone likes you, though, so they will be more likely to help if you write the paper. Besides, you are such a better writer than I am. You will find the best way to say everything. So they were going back and forth, like, you write the paper, no, you write the paper, no, you write the paper. So on this particular night at the inn, Thomas Jefferson wanted to make this important document the very best thing that he had ever written. In the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson wanted to explain to people that America could be different from any other nation in the world. He thought about every word before he wrote them. This is why he was walking up and down in his room, speaking aloud the words he was deciding to use: life, liberty. And what should come next? The pursuit of happiness, he told himself. At last, he began to write. On the 2nd of July, Jefferson finished his declaration and showed it to John Adams and the others working with him, who suggested a few small changes. Jefferson's declaration said that every person should feel safe to live, to be free, and to decide what to do in order to be happy. He wrote that everyone, not just king or queens, had the right to do these things. Jefferson's declaration said that this was the reason to start a new nation. the United States of America. His friend John Adams smiled and said, "I told you, Thomas, you were the right man to write it." 2 days after finishing the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July, the other leaders voted to officially begin this new country that would be independent from Great Britain. That's what George Washington had fought for, remember? So this is good news. This is what we call the 4th of July, or Independence Day. So that's the day that we declared we're free from Britain, the United States did. After the new nation was born, Americans read Thomas Jefferson's document again and again whenever they were deciding how the country should work. People in other countries said, "We want to be free too," and they followed America's example by making changes in their countries. Jefferson's words about liberty changed people's lives all over the world. 3 more pictures. 13 years after Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, and after the colonists won the American Revolution against Great Britain, George Washington became the first president of the United States, which we already knew. Later, when Washington announced, "I have been president for long enough, let someone else have a turn," Jefferson's friend John Adams became our second president. So first, second. 4 years later, Thomas Jefferson became the third president of the United States, and many people believe he was one of the best presidents America has had. Here it is. Whenever he was not sure about what to do, Jefferson read the words he himself had written. They always helped him make good decisions, and they are still helping us today. So this is the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. One more picture. Do you recognize this statue? I'm sure you do. This is actually in our state of New York. It's in New York City. When America celebrated the 100th birthday of the Declaration of Independence, the government of France gave the nation this statue called the Statue of Liberty. It was a gift for America's birthday. France wanted to show how much they admired America's love of freedom and liberty, which Thomas Jefferson wrote about so beautifully in the Declaration of Independence. This statue still stands in New York City in the New York Harbor, welcoming thousands of visitors each year. So whenever you see this statue, remember how hard Thomas Jefferson worked to declare that every person should have liberty or be free. This is a very big statue. It's a symbol of the United States. Okay, so a few questions. Thomas Jefferson, let's summarize real quick. Summarize means to take that big story and to just put it into a few sentences. Thomas Jefferson's talent was writing, and he was pacing in his hotel or his inn because he wanted to do a good job, and he was writing a very important document called the Declaration of Independence. And he wanted to write that important paper to explain how important it was to start a new country, free from Britain. So now your job is to write any 3 facts from the story. Any 3. We learned so many facts. Maybe you want to write Thomas Jefferson was our 3rd president. Maybe you want to write the Declaration of Independence was a very important document. Maybe you want to write the Declaration says that we have the right to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's a lot to write, though. Maybe you want to write John Adams was the 2nd president. Anything that you feel is important that we read from this story today. Choice is yours. It's kind of like a free write. All right. That was a good one. And I know that the 4th of July is one of my favorite holidays that we celebrate here in the United States. It's so much fun. So on Friday, we will be back with lesson 6, and lesson 6 is about somebody who you guys talk about a lot, Abraham Lincoln. So we will learn why he was so important and why what he did to help America, because he did a lot of good things. All right, bye, kindergartners. Toodaloo.